All right, welcome back to the channel. So, an incredible weekend of fights between Jermell Charlo and Rosario, his brother Jermall, Sergey Deverenchenko. But this Monday is also a big event in boxing, and that is the return of Errol Spence Jr. to sparring, and he will be doing so after pretty much having fallen to second place in his own training camp. Let's talk about Errol Spence Jr. and the effect that Jermell Charlo's performance could have on Errol's performance with Danny Garcia. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. So, man, Errol Spence Jr. returns to training today, and returns to sparring. He's been in the camp for a pay-per-view fight that's coming up in November against former 140-pound champion, unified champion, and former WBC 147-pound champion Danny Garcia. And they will be fighting this November. There's been rumors that it would be taking place, perhaps at AT&T Stadium, where it could be outside. Bunch of different talk about what's going on, but for certain that fight is going to be taking place, and this is going to be the first fight since Errol Spence Jr. It's been a year since he fought, since he beat Sean Porter, and then after that he had the car accident. So the fact that he's back sparring today, that means he's all the way back. We should get some type of reports, if not, just outwardly people telling people how it's going. We should be able to find some stuff out just by word of mouth and different leaks and things coming out. But but what happened this last week with Jermell Charlo, seeing as both Errol Spence Jr. and Jermell Charlo both have the same trainer, and they were both in the same camp, even though they weren't sparring with each other, and the fact that Jermell Charlo said thank you specifically to Errol Spence Jr. for helping him get ready for the fight that he had against Rosario. Man, I think that we can expect to see something really, really solid out of Errol Spence Jr., man, because that's the best I've seen Jermell Charlo look. And to know that Errol Spence Jr. was in camp with him, working with him in camp, makes me feel that, Errol Spence Jr. is going to be really, really right for this fight. Obviously having been around Jermell for that amount of time, in this extended training camp, because dude, Errol's been in training camp for a minute, and the fight's still more than 8 weeks out, or about 8 weeks out. So, it looks like it's go time. Now, what I'm going to be interested in to see, though, is now that Errol Spence Jr., got outdone by Jermell Charlo, man. We're going to see whether or not there's some competitiveness in that camp, and we can see if Errol can outdo what Jermell did against Jeison Rosario. Now, going into the fight with Jermell Charlo and Jeison Rosario, that fight seemed just about as competitive as, well, not a lot of people thought it was as competitive, but almost as competitive, and definitely a dangerous fight, similar to the one that Errol Spence Jr. is having with Danny Garcia. But what you could see out of the Jermell Charlo and Rosario fight was how Jermell Charlo completely drained the tank of Jeison Rosario in that fight with them body shots, man, to the point where he wound up knocking him out with a straight jab to the pit of the stomach. That tells you how much that body work had to be wearing on Jeison Rosario through the length of that fight. Which brings me to the point that, now Errol, we're going to see in there with Danny Garcia, and Errol Spence Jr. is one of the more vicious body punchers, consistent guys with body attacks. So I expect to see the same thing from Errol Spence Jr. and Danny Garcia, man. Just a very, very smart, very patient fight. One where, he understands what the weaknesses of Danny Garcia's is. And, and I believe all of that stuff because you can tell listening to the corner of Derrick James, who I personally believe it should be, and definitely if Errol Spence Jr. beats Danny Garcia, should be trainer of the year, because that guy Derrick James gives very, very specific instructions in the corner, and you can tell. And I've been around him before. You can tell that this guy is just extremely meticulous, very detail oriented guy, and really understands and knows how to break fighters down, man. Because the game plan that they had for Jeison Rosario was just, it was executed to the T, and it was designed excellently. With Errol Spence Jr., what you've seen in other fights have been like with Mikey Garcia. He had a game plan for Mikey Garcia, and he wound up, boxing the boxer. And when he fought the next fight against Sean Porter, he winds up slugging with the slugger. What I'm hoping is for this fight that Derrick James and Errol Spence can come with some combination of the two, where we can see the fight be as easy for him as Rosario was for Jermell Charlo. And the way that the way that Jermell again made the fight easier is that he just really wore Jeison Rosario down, but he also knew what to do with pretty much every move that Jeison Rosario likes to make. Jeison Rosario likes to push you forward up against the ropes, and then start, handling you up against the ropes. And when you try to escape, he's got this really nice sweeping, left hook that knocked out Justin Deloche. Other times, man, when you try to slide off the ropes, he'll hook you to the body, to try to keep you up against the ropes and from moving out to your right. But Jermell Charlo just had that all of that set out, dude. Whenever anything got rough, he just took a step forward, wrapped up Jeison Rosario. Jeison Rosario would get some, little cheap shots in, rabbit punches and, maybe little shots on the hips and things like that. But, never to the point where, he could get it and it could really start wearing down on Jermell Charlo. So I think that we should be able to see the same type of thing out of Errol Spence Jr., but specifically for the strengths that Danny Garcia brings. And the strengths that Danny Garcia brings is his patience, is his timing. He doesn't typically take the lead as much as other fighters do. He really likes to punch when your punch catch you in between punches and really hurt you with that left hook, that no-look left hook. And so I expect Errol Spence Jr. to have a game plan that is going to neutralize those things and at the same time allow him to consistently apply pressure to Danny Garcia. And, hopefully, man, and I do believe he might be able to get Danny Garcia out of there, because there is something about competition in your camps, man. He's going to want to get to be the number one dude in that camp. And, this is going to be a funny position for him because he's not. Jermell Charlo has 3 belts to Errol Spence Jr.'s 2 belts. Now, the shame of it is, though, that Errol Spence Jr. really should be fighting for the same situation that Jermell Charlo was facing, except for he would be the guy with 2 belts fighting the guy with 1, and that should have been Manny Pacquiao, because Manny Pacquiao was in Dallas at the stadium when Errol Spence Jr. fought Mikey Garcia, but he decided to fight Keith Thurman for the belt. But now, when there is an opportunity for them to unify, Manny Pacquiao, rumor is setting up a fight with Conor McGregor. So Conor McGregor fighting, well, I don't know if Conor McGregor is actually going to be able to make 147 pounds. So that's a point somebody brought up to me. The Conor McGregor is somebody that is like 160 pounds. Well, he fights at significantly heavier than 147. So I guess we don't really have to worry about Manny Pacquiao and Conor McGregor fighting for that WBA belt. But you do have to know that the WBA is not about to strip Manny Pacquiao for not fighting, for having an exhibition fight or a fight above 147 pounds. So I wouldn't expect, I don't expect, even though Conor McGregor's not going to be a fight for the 147-pound title, I don't think that that's going to make that title any more available for the other champions. I think that is going to get locked up until Manny Pacquiao retires, at which point in time maybe Ugas and Thurman would fight for it. But, who knows how long off that is. Now, the other option, obviously, is for Errol Spence Jr. to get a 3rd belt for fighting Terrence Crawford, and we definitely want to see that. But, the financial situations associated with that, according to the words out of the mouth of several people that are associated with the PBC, is that they don't see that fight is financially viable at this particular point in time. I don't know how true that is. I think that they could probably do the same setup that Jermell and Jermall did with the pay-per-view, but we'll see. All in all, though, I'm extremely happy to see Errol Spence Jr. back in sparring. I look forward to hearing, exactly how, or the words that are coming out about how good he's looking or not, but more than likely is looking very good. He's also been working with the strength and conditioning coach, Blue Ray, who he had worked with, earlier in his career, that really did have him looking very strong, very fit. So we're hoping to see it again. We'll see how he responds to Jermell Charlo becoming one of the top pound for pound fighters in the world, and the biggest belt holder in Derrick James's stable. But you let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.